Hello crafty friends, Shana from ShanoukiArt. Stopgap. Noun. Something intended for temporary use until something better or more suitable can be found. So what exactly am I doing? I'm creating a stopgap or temporary journal. And why exactly would I want a temporary journal? Well, my family and I are traveling overseas in a few months, and of course I want to try my best to record the trip. Try and remember all the memories and save all the little bits and bobs from the trip. I want to make a beautiful travel journal with lots of detail for this trip. But I can't carry all my craft supplies with me or the actual journal that I'll be journaling in, as I won't have the time or the space to do proper journaling. But I have to record the information somewhere. My brain isn't going to maintain all that information. So I'm creating a temporary journal where I'll be jotting down the day-to-day adventures. I've made lots of pockets for ephemera or tickets or lolly wrappers or anything that we gather during our travels. You're probably saying, well, you could just use a notebook. Of course I can, but why would I when I can create this? And the idea is that this will be part of the main journal. I'm going to put a space at the back of the journal. This will be like the final signature, and it'll slip in as part of the overall finished product. I've used the same colors as I'm planning to use in the travel journal, and I'm going to decorate as I go. The base of this journal is made from one piece of 12-inch by 12-inch paper. It looks a little complicated at first, but stick with me and you'll see how it all fits together. So I will be taking this stopgap journal and a small amount of supplies with me on the trip. I'm going to do my very best to journal at least once a day. I have created a very simple closure for this journal. It is just an elastic, so it has space to expand. I'm hoping this journal becomes super chunky. And I have added a little charm. I'm not showing you the charm now. I will show it at the end of the video. But from the charm, it is a little bit of a hint of where I'm going. Can you guess where we're traveling to? Put your guess in the comments below. Let's get on with the tutorial. You'll need one piece of 12-inch by 12-inch paper. I've chosen this blue, which is like a denim print. I really love it. But on the other side, we have this going on, which is not at all part of my theme, but we will cover that up. So if you have a piece of cardstock that both sides are what you want, that's great. I don't, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to add some additional pieces just to cover these designs up. Also, if you have a one-sided piece and it's just white on the other side, that's fine too. I'm just trimming off the additional section on this paper where the barcode is. We need to divide this across into 3, which would be the 4-inch and the 8-inch mark, but I only need to make one mark that'll be at the 4-inch. I'll show you now why. We're now going to turn the paper and make a fold lining up the edge of the page to the mark we've just created. I like to make the fold of the paper both ways. It just makes everything fit together better. We're then going to open it up and then fold the other edge of the paper against the fold we've just created. This will create the 3. We're now going to turn it the other way and fold it up in half. When we're done, we have 6 equal sections. Now this is where it gets a little tricky, but stick with me, it will make sense. Turn your paper over so that the design that you want on the outside of your journal is facing up. We're then going to make a cut from this point to this point across 2 of the sections in the middle fold. You can use your scissors or your cutter. I'm going to use my metal ruler and my X-Acto knife. Use whatever you are more comfortable with. So when we've made our cut, it's going to look like this. We're now going to shape some of those pockets that you saw inside the journal. We're going to start at the top right-hand corner where we're going to make our corner pockets. We need to make a diagonal line where we're going to cut. You can do it from corner to corner if you prefer. I like to leave about 1 centimeter from each edge. I just feel the ephemera holds better if there's some additional paper at the top and the bottom of the pocket. Once we've made our line, we're going to cut this. Again, using whatever method you're more comfortable with. We're now going to cut one of our side pockets. Working in the bottom right section, we're going to measure 2 inches, which is the middle of this section. And then we're going to cut those 2 inches off. We're going to make one more cut. This is for the other side pocket. We're going to work on the bottom left section. And here we're going to cut 1 inch off the edge. And when you're done cutting, you're going to be left with something like this. Do keep all the offcuts. This part is optional. I'm going to mark the center of the side pocket and I'm going to punch a half circle. Let me turn this over and show you how it actually folds into a journal cover. You'll fold the top down over the bottom. The smaller side pocket folds under, and then your corner pocket folds over. And then the front section has the larger side pocket on the left and just a blank page on the right. So this is basically a journal cover with a middle section. I now need to cover these designs that don't suit my theme. I'm just taking a pencil and making a mark on the sections that are showing so I know which parts I'm covering. Of course, you'll skip this step if your paper is one-sided or if you're happy with the design on both sides of your paper. My pencil markings show that the top middle, the bottom middle, and the bottom left sections need to be covered. And I did the entire exercise and realized that my camera wasn't filming. So you'll see the finished area here where I've got the paper stuck down, but I'll show you quickly how I did it. It was very, very simple. Taking my cardstock that I was going to use, I folded it exactly the same way I did when I started the journal cover to create the 6 sections. Oh, and if you'd like to know what craft supplies I'm taking with me for this trip and for this journaling adventure, do let me know in the comments and I will create a video to show you what I'm taking. Once you have this all folded, each section will match the ones on your cover. Just cut out 3 and stick them down onto the inside of your cover. I just used glue stick for mine. I want to add an additional pocket to my corner pocket, so it's double, more space for ephemera. I'm using a contrasting black paper and I'm attaching this just with some machine stitching. I'm going to machine stitch a lot. Of course, you don't have to. You can use double-sided tape or glue to stick down your pockets. I'm now going to cut the piece that's going to be that bigger pocket on the inside of the journal. I don't really measure with a ruler. I sort of just put the paper down and mark with the pencil where I want to cut it, and most of the time I'm eyeballing. You can measure precisely if that's what you prefer. For this one too, I'm going to punch the half circle. I think it makes some of the pockets look really cute. And I am machine stitching this in place too. I'm going to create 2 smaller pockets that'll be for the smaller bits of ephemera that I'm going to collect. Placing the paper across so I can see the width that I need, I'm going to cut 2 small rectangles, 1 inch high and the width of my pocket across. These will fit here, one at the bottom and one in the middle. I'm going to attach these again with machine stitching. I have finished stitching all my pockets. I'm now going to stitch this cover together. On this section, I'm going to stitch along the bottom, and when I flip this over, I'm going to stitch along the top and bottom of the left side pocket and the bottom of my corner pocket. And it'll look something like this. We now need to gather our papers for our signatures. I'm using a variety of tea-stained papers and some printables. These printables are available from BontikVintageDesigns on Etsy. I'll put a link to the shop in the description box below. I love the colors, I love the worn look, and this perfectly suited the theme that I'm going for my travel journal. I'm not going to use all these papers in this temporary journal. Some will go in the larger final journal. But I want both journals to match and be cohesive. I've gone ahead and torn off all the white borders around my printables, and then I'm going to fold each one in half and tear it. I'm using half a page for each page of my signature. Of course, you can use a cutter or a scissors if you want fine lines. I like the rough look of torn edges. Do whatever suits your style. I've also gone ahead and tea stained these. I don't want the starkness of the white on every page. I am going to leave some white, but I want more of a muted tone. Usually I go for coffee stain. This time I've gone for tea stain because I want a lighter finish. I'm going to alternate between the printable papers and plain white or graph paper that I have also tea stained. And what I've done is I've gone and I've folded everything in half to sort of make up the signatures. I measure roughly if it's going to fit in the cover. I tear off any excess. You can see this paper is from a spiral notebook, and I do leave the spiral edge on. I love to leave that in for additional texture. Go ahead and pull the papers for each signature. I'm putting 12 pages per signature. When I say 12, it's 12 pieces I have folded in half, so that'll be 24 pages and 48 writing sides. I'm assembling them how I want them to be in the book. Like I said, I'm alternating a colored or printed one along with a plainer one. At this point, you can put anything else you want inside. You could put some doilies or some vellum, other kind of papers that you have, printed or plain, whatever is going to suit your theme. I haven't worried too much about size because I can size them down once they're in the journal. If you're cutting them with a cutter or a scissors, it's a little more difficult to do it once it's assembled, but I use a ruler to tear mine smaller, so mine is a little bit more rough cuts. When making these types of journals, I think it's a great way to use up bits of papers that you may not have used maybe in other projects. So even if you have just a one-off of something, just pop it into your journal as part of the signature. As you can see, some of these are slightly too long and they're hanging out of the cover, which I don't want. So I'm just going to slip my ruler on and just rip that down to a slightly smaller size. Again, not measuring anything, just eyeballing it, but that is how I enjoy working. To add the signatures to the cover, I'm going to use some embroidery thread, an embroidery needle, and my regular pamphlet stitch that I use for all my journals. I find it the easiest to use. I think it holds really well and it looks good too. Keep your papers together so they don't slip. I use bulldog clips for this. You can also use large paper clips. It just helps everything from slipping while you're trying to do the stitching. There are many fancy contraptions out there to create holes for your journals. I just used an old-fashioned telephone directory, an awl, and a template. To create the template, I just use a piece of cardboard. I fold it in half. I make my middle mark first where the middle hole is going to go, and then I measure equally from the middle to the top hole and the middle to the bottom hole. This template I'm using is pre-existing. I've used it before for another journal. The journal was slightly bigger. These holes at the top and bottom are slightly too far up and down, so I've just repunched a new hole, keeping the distance between them the same. So I will now use the template to punch the holes in my cover, and I'll use it also to punch the holes in each of my signatures. I push the needle through the middle to the back, through the cover, to the outside of the cover. pulling it through and leaving about 4 inches of thread on the inside. I then pass the needle through the top hole, through the cover, and through the signature to the middle. I then put the needle at the bottom hole, again through the signature to the back to the outside of the cover, and then the needle goes back through the middle section. It sometimes can be a bit tricky if the pages aren't quite aligned. Try not to force it and tear the papers. Just try gently and it will eventually go through. I then pass one of the threads on either side of that center thread that's going from the top to the bottom. I pull it quite tight, but not too tight. You don't want to tear the papers. I hold everything secure, and then what I do is I do like a snap test. I turn the journal upside down and try and snap the threads, and if they do a nice snapping noise, you know they're tight enough. If they're too slack, they won't make a snap noise. Once you're happy with the tightness, just tie it into a knot. And trim off the excess. I'm going to repeat the exact same process for the second signature. Now, what I didn't notice until I actually started sewing is that this is the first time I've actually put 2 signatures through the same holes of my cover. Usually my cover will have a spine and there will be multiple holes along the spine to hold each signature. This one we've used exactly the same ones, but it worked out just fine. Now, because we've got 2 signatures weighing down on those 3 little holes on the cover, I want to reinforce it to avoid tearing. This journal will have quite a lot of wear and tear in and out of my bag on a daily basis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a piece of masking tape down the spine just to secure the stitching. This masking tape doesn't always stick great and it comes off quite easily. So I'm going to add it with some Mod Podge. I want to use the masking tape because it's quite flexible. I think it suits the theme and it is also the right width and color. And then because it doesn't stick so great and could easily come off, of course we're sticking it down with something additional. For me it is Mod Podge. You could also use craft glue or even glue stick. I left that to dry really well, and then when I came back I folded the journal closed and just pressed the spine so that it is even with the front and the back. It wanted to go a little bit wonky because of the 2 signatures, but if you just press it, paper sort of does what you want it to do. For the closure, I'm going to use a piece of elastic. I want the journal to have capacity to grow because I want to get it really chunky. So I have this thin black elastic that I have cut and I'm using double. I'm just putting it around the journal and tying it in a knot. Because it's elastic, it comes on and off the journal really easily, but also keeps the journal secure, so if I have any bits inside, they're not going to slip out or fall out of my journal. And just to add something a little extra, I'm going to add a charm to this. The charm is going to suit the theme of where I'm going, and if you can guess where it is, do let me know in the comments below. I think the charm is likely to give it away pretty quickly. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my tutorial on a Stopgap journal. I really hope you enjoyed it and were inspired to create your own. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so you're notified every time I upload new content. Thanks again for watching, happy creating, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!